iPad, cell phone, TV, kids, screen time. We all have them. We all deal with it. Is there a balance? Can we do it and come with a decision without shaming each other? Let's talk about it.
I have some questions for you. Hey, brave girl, how you do the things that you do?
Welcome to the Brave Talk Show. Brave women, bold topics, and nothing is off the table. In today's episode, we are going to talk about screen time. We all are passionate about it. We all trying to figure it out. We want to talk about it without shaming each other. It's going to be a great episode. It's going to come with a lot of education. So hopefully we can give you all the details and help you find a balance. But before, we have a hot topic that we are going to talk about today. Are you ready?
Oh, it's always scary because we don't ever know. We're not prepped on these.
I know.
We
I
don't
love
know
it when
what's
she
gonna
doesn't
happen.
like to prep us.
I don't prep you guys.
No,
It's
I know.
like,
So
I
take
love
it out of
don't
the
have
anything.
music, please.
Yeah.
I feel like at this point, I know everybody what people doesn't want to play. You know?
So you're like,
And the
I'm going to
thing
have
is,
you do this
I think
one.
the thing is, I was just only going to ask a question. Like, it's a question and you guys can think about it.
Okay.
And then you give me, like, I guess kind of the short, version of what you think, right? And
right.
so, well, I'm going to give you an... kind of like, you know how we did the slapping last time? You see somebody slapping, that was you.
Scenario.
So I'm going to give you a
Scenario.
scenario.
Moral dilemma.
That's what, maybe that's
moral
we'll call it
dilemma.
that.
Call it moral dilemma. She'll give, okay.
See? Okay, so you're at the grocery store, okay? And you see this couple, and you can tell, like, the man is older, and the woman's more of a, like, you can tell there's, like, a submissive happening there. Little children, and then he's, like, always snapping at her. And he's like, hey, talk louder. I can't hear you. You got to speak. What do you say? Like, snapping. You see it the first time, and you kept going. You're like, well, that's their marriage, right? Then you go to the checkout, and you see them again, and something's happening. He's like, I can't hear you. Snapping in her face. Like, hey, I don't know what you're saying. And she's like, oh, nothing. Do you just go on with your life? Or do you say something? The first or the second time?
My heart is racing. My heart is racing right now. I think it would depend on my mood that day. But if I was feeling really confident that day, I think I would say something the second time. I would say something to the guy like, hey, excuse me, you are talking to your wife really poorly right now, and you're embarrassing yourself, and you're embarrassing, your family. And, if you keep talking to her like that, I'm going to have to call somebody. And then that'd be it. And then walk away and hope that he doesn't punch me. Yeah.
Okay.
If I was in a not a very confident mood, depending on how he was enough, I think I might call a manager and be like, hey, there's this guy that's in aisle 14 who's being a real jerk, Seeing if maybe the security could get over there or something.
Yeah, okay.
Brett? Brittany? I see you put your whole fist in your mouth.
I feel like I would love to be the person that goes and stands up for her. Like my ideal self, I'd be confident and walk right over there and be like, excuse me. That's not how you treat a woman. That's not how you treat another human being. And then I'd ask her if she was okay. And you know what I mean? But I know the reality of it is that
It's not gonna make a difference.
I would no, I think I just wouldn't do it. I think I would be too scared.
What if you're with your husband?
I don't even know if that would I think I would still be too scared. I think I would, maybe if I could catch her away from him, I'd ask if she was okay, if there's anything I could do for her. But if she was still with him, I think, my honest answer is I probably wouldn't do anything. I'd go home and, literally pray for her. And I don't say that in a casual way.
You would actually do
I
it.
would actually pray for her. But I think just my personality, I think I'm too scared.
Yeah.
Sad, but true.
Yeah.
Okay.
You?
I have been in scenario you guys know
Situation.
moral dilemma is my favorite game because I always find myself in real life moral dilemmas. So I want to know what everyone else would do. I would 100% say something, but I would first look at her while he's there and I would just be like, "Are you okay? This behavior is completely disrespectful how he's talking to you, and I just want to make sure you're okay. Are you safe? Do you need any help?" Just to kind of set a standard. Then I would look directly in his face and be like, that is so disrespectful. You're not only being a terrible example to your kids, but the fact that you would do this in public makes me really uncomfortable what's happening behind closed doors.
Seriously.
And I would look at the wife again and be like, I'm so sorry. Just know that you don't have to tolerate this, and there are things and people who can help you. If you need my help right now, ask me and I'm here for you. If not, like, let this be a lesson to you, sir. Like, I'm disgusted. And then I would just leave.
Yeah.
And I would hope that that would more impact her instead of him, where she's like, I have a voice.
Yeah.
I want to be a woman that stands up for myself. I no longer accept this. Not for him. Like, I hope he feels like an idiot, but like, look at her and be like, not okay. Find the power. Step into your
Yeah.
power and don't accept this.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's what I would
So
do.
I actually witnessed this at the Walmart by our house.
Gotta love Walmart.
Yeah. And it was like, so like the first time I was just like, I'm just gonna watch, like, right, kind of see what it is, because she seems like okay with it. And then we had to check out, and it was the same thing. And I was like, kind of this is what you said. Say, are you okay? And I said, your children are watching you. You're making a scene, and it's the American Fork Walmart, which is busy all the time, and everybody's looking at you snapping on your wife. You're embarrassing her, and you're embarrassing yourself.
Yeah.
Like, and your children are watching. It's not acceptable. I said, do you need help?
You
Like,
looked at her and
yeah,
said
and I
that?
said, are you okay? Because if he's snapping at you like this, you're also doing it in the home. It may be worse. And I said, do better, because it's not okay. And she's like, yeah, thank you so much. And I was like, and even you can tell, like, he was not.
Did he say anything?
No, and you could tell, like, he was not happy that she even respond.
Oh, and I'm
So
sure she
then,
got in
and that's why I
trouble when
tried
she
to
got
make
home.
sure, like, I'm not gonna say much to her, because I don't want her. And I said, just know it's not acceptable to be talked to like that.
Yeah.
And even somebody is like, yeah, that was not okay.
Yeah.
And he said nothing. So it's like, oh, poor lady.
Yeah.
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 So,
Wow. Here's a question too that I just thought of. What do you do if somebody speaks to you guys that way? Do you let
I've never
somebody
had
speak to
anybody
that?
speak like, oh, you mean like somebody that's not a spouse? Like somebody
Or
else?
a spouse, if you let, like, does your spouse, I guess you don't have to say that on air. That would be allowed.
does your spouse snap at you and
but would you allow somebody to speak to you that way?
No.
No, I had actually a circumstance with a friend this past week, actually, where I have been friends with this person for many, many years, and I set a standard long ago that I was okay to be treated a certain way.
Yeah.
And as I've become more confident in myself and evolved and cut out toxic patterns in my own self, I realized, like, it wasn't okay to accept this behavior anymore. And it came to a head this week, and I was really scared to confront it and worried that I would lose the friendship, or there'd be backlash, or like cause confrontation. But I stood in my power, and I literally said the words, like, I will no longer accept to be talked and treated like this. It's not okay. And I'm sorry if this makes you feel uncomfortable, but these are the exact specific things that I will no longer accept. And how you made me feel and treated was disrespectful. And moving forward, if that's part of a relationship, then I don't want any part of it. And the tune switched immediately. There was an apology, which I wasn't expecting. I actually thought it would be like cause a little
Tension.
and there was an apology, and then things since then have felt like a weight is off my shoulder, because I stood up for myself,
I wanna
and
clap
now
for you.
I know. I was like, that's impressive.
and now I've like set the standard higher for that person and I, that like I will no longer accept things that I did for 20 years, and we both are interacting in really, really good ways now.
That's great.
awesome. I love
Yeah,
that.
but it was freaking scary.
Yeah,
I love
bet.
that you stood up for yourself.
Yeah.
Like, enough is enough. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
I think about my shyness to step into somebody else's conversation. I need to go home and think about this more, because I won't allow myself to be talked to that. Like I have been talked by family members, not by my husband at all, but by other family members, and I had to endure it when I was younger. But now that I'm older, I'm like, no, I won't take that at all. I'll leave, and it's really empowering to be able to leave a situation like that.
Right.
Just like, I deserve better than this.
Yeah, and you feel proud of yourself, but also like you've now changed the expectation that if it happens again, you feel okay, like having to do whatever it takes to like now set boundaries or leave or
I agree.
Yeah.
those things.
Oh, great job. That was awesome.
Very good.
Yeah. This is the beauty of the show. We all have different perspectives and different views on things. So let's get to the heart of the episode. So the reason I wanted to talk about screen time, because it is a conversation that we are having constantly, right? And so the reason for this topic, I think I want to stay with the level of screen time. Like, what do you guys, so kind of like so we can move down kind of the timeline of it all. So like what screen time look for all of you guys. I think we've had like a hot topic on it, and we all had our opinion. What screen time looks like. What did it look like for other people, right? What do you think it should look like? And then we'll talk about the effective, what it does and what it doesn't. I look at some article, I did some reading into it. And then how do you find a balance, right? You have the ones that's no screen time, and then screen time, and then, but then also the shaming. How do we move the shaming? Because people are going to do differently. So then my first question is for each of you, what does screen time looks like for you and your family?
Awesome. Let's go first. I feel like I always go first.
I'll go. For me, it's been different the last couple months because of Vera. They've obviously had more. So I let my kids watch a movie a day, where like if I need to just feed her, I need some quiet, or I need to sleep, or like I need to run a couple of them and leave a couple of them home. TV's a good babysitter for me, honestly. I feel like if I leave a couple of them home, I can put them in front of the screen and there won't be any trouble.
Yeah, they'll stay there.
Oh, yeah.
They totally will. Like if I have my 12-year-old babysit the 8-year-old and the 5-year-old, then I know I'm like, okay, the TV's on. There's not going to be drama. There's not going to be fighting. I'm okay. So yeah, I use screen time as a babysitter, and then they get 2 hours a day. Yeah. And then on weekends, they'll like Friday nights are movie night, so then they'll get a second movie in the evening.
Cool.
That's what it looks like for us in the summer.
For me, it's always ever changing, but let me tell you where my ultimate heart is. Before marrying my husband, I didn't even own a television. Like that's how much I just did not own it. Like I didn't like it. So I found that I did more if I didn't have a TV. Like I painted and I wrote books and I read books. And so as a single person, I just really enjoyed what I was able to do without it. Now I did have my phone, and when we married, there was social media and stuff like that. So I definitely still used that kind of screen time. But so if I were to go back to like my heart of hearts, if I was running the show 100%, like the TV would have never been even introduced in our house really. Maybe like on an occasion for a movie, but it wouldn't have been something that was just on regularly. My husband came into our marriage really liking TV. And so screen time was always more than usual. But he's evolved a lot since then, and he's gotten way better about that. And so I think we're finally at a place where he and I are at the same level when it comes to the television, but the difference is now just keeping up with the kids. So like we have a rule right now for summer that they can have screen time between 1 and 3. It's the peak heat of the day, right? So they can take a break from their playing outside if they want, and they don't have to have screen time. That's only, this is just the option. If you want screen time, it is between 1 and 3, and that is the only time. The problem though is I work from home and I do have hyperfocus. I have ADD, and part of ADD is like, you can also like hyperfocus. Oftentimes when you're doing a project, it's like the flip of it. It's interesting, but like the house could be burning down and I wouldn't even know. So there's times where I'll find like one of my kids took my iPad and I didn't know, and they're hiding behind the couch where I can't see because I'm facing this direction and they're over on the iPad like watching TV, and I didn't know, watching shows, and I didn't know that they were on there, and I'm like, what are you doing? And it's the same story like all the time, like you're not supposed to be watching the shows and blah 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 blah. So I'm trying, like I got 4 kids, and then we got a downstairs basement that I don't hear. It's very quiet down there, so a kid can sneak down and play video games and I wouldn't even know unless I went down there. And so I am battling just this summer specifically, just trying to like make sure my kids are not all on screens when it's not the screen time. Yeah. So
What about you?
that's a nutshell.
I definitely think screen time in my family as well evolves around the things happening in the home and like the dynamic and how much I'm working and whatnot. But like overall, which I've shared here, I'm actually very passionate about it. Like, so same thing. I don't watch TV, not because like I'm necessarily against it. I fill my time other ways. I have a TV in almost, no bedrooms. Well, I have one in mine, but like we have TVs. I'm not like against it or anything.
But you just don't watch it.
Yeah, like
I
just don't watch
on.
it. Like I think the last time I watched TV, honestly, was 8 months ago when I had my surgery and I was downtime. Like I legitimately don't think I've turned it on since. For me.
For you.
Yeah.
Summer is harder for me because my kids are home more during the school year. Like after school and stuff, like my kids are doing things, so we don't have a lot of screen time. And I'm very passionate about the effects that I think it has on my children, and I feel like I am able to feel confident in my opinion because I've tried both. I've gone 90 days without ever any sort of screen time with babies, right? So I have 2, 4, 6, and 10, and we did this 2 years ago, so I had tiny little babies. And I went 90 days without ever allowing them to watch anything. And then I also, on the flip side, went 90 days allowing it in my house. And so I have data to prove why I feel the way I do. It's really hard to go 90 days without any sort of anything,
that's
right?
amazing.
It was actually one of the hardest things I'd ever done. And so because of that experience, I feel really passionate, and I know how it affects my children personally. So it's a personal decision, but I have seen where I don't feel aligned with it in my own home. And so it's minimal. And I'm actually constantly judging myself because right now I'm in a phase of life where I do utilize it as a babysitter.
Yeah.
And I find times where I'm like really exhausted or like needing it like downtime. And then I'm like, I know this is like isn't good for my kids, but like there's no other way. So I'm constantly actually not shaming others. I'm shaming myself because I know my passion behind it. And sometimes I allow more than I'd like in my house because of things happening. But it is a great babysitter, and my kids obviously are on screens. Like we don't have phones or tablets, but we have a TV. And I would say right now in the summer, my kids are probably getting an hour to an hour and a half a day.
Yeah. So this is kind of the reason I wanted to also talk about screen time, because as I listen to each of you, there's a wince of because of that guilt that we all feel because we have to explain why. Right. You know what I mean? And I think the biggest thing is like, a situation changes, like as a mom, like it's summertime, like you say, you're going to, you're working mom. Like I think the reason I really wanted to bring the focus to it is because like, it's what works for your family. If you're confident, I always think like if you're confident in what you're doing, of course we all can always change things, you know what I mean? But you just had a child, right? And there's every now and then you have to go. So we shouldn't feel guilty as long as we are aware that, you know what, this is a season, we'll get better. You know what I mean? And I think that's why we have a lot of, like, I'm seeing a lot of it. Parents that think we already have so much that we're struggling with. And adding that on, of course, like, with my kids, like, I work from home too. And it's been great because your husband home in the summer, he's kind of more good with the, like, okay, let's go take the kids swimming, let's go out there. But I can sit here and tell you, my kids watch a lot of screen time because of, like, I'm in court, I'm da-da-da, you know what I mean? So it's the babysitting part. And then there's time I'm like, there's days I'm like, I don't have a lot of meetings, so I need to make sure they're here. Like, let's go out for a walk. Like, be intentional, because there's days I know that it's gonna be a full, like, they're gonna get a little more a TV day than what we're used to. And so I think the biggest focus is to be aware that there is a change, but we will change that change. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I have a maybe twist on all this, and I want to see what your guys' what you say about this. So like for me, like it's less about when I feel the guilt that I'm telling you guys, it's less about like I'm a bad mom because I'm neglectful or not giving them attention. Like I would leave my kids outside for hours and not feel that. It's because I personally believe it's harmful for my child, and it's going to be something that comes out in 20 years, like tobacco and all these things that they're later like, this was killing us. And same with like social media. Like we're all involved in 10 years, we're going to learn it was like the destruction of all of us. So like, it's not about like that I think I'm neglecting them or whatnot. Like, it's like I am putting them in front of something that I personally think is dangerous.
Right.
And that's like a different twist than just like, we're busy, it's a babysitter. Like, would you leave your kids with a babysitter that you know was hurting them?
No,
Right. That's how I look at it. So I'm like, oh, like
I tell my kids, I'm like, we've got to limit it because it makes you stupid. Like it literally kills your brain cells just sitting in front of it. Like the difference between reading a book versus just watching a screen. I'm like, you watch movie all summer, you're gonna go to school dumber.
Yeah.
Like
so
I'm
I guess
like
what the question was is
Christian.
Taking away the shame of like how we spend our time with our children and shame about if they watch it or not, or like, do you think it's dangerous for our kids?
Yeah.
So for me, where I feel the guilt is when I see that they're preferring or wanting to go to the screen versus doing something else, and that's where I'm like, oh my gosh, my kids are addicted, and that scares me. Like I don't want them to already have addictions, you know, and it is addictive. And I have to say, there's days, especially if I'm not in a place of feeling good about myself or my life that day, some things have happened, whatever, like I'm in a place of I just unhappiness, I escape to my phone. I've shared with you guys that I can do that. So I've caught myself going, I'm way too addicted to my phone today. Right. Like I need to put it away because I keep going to it and I'm not finding I'm not finding happiness there, but
Fulfillment.
it's like you're just scrolling looking for a dopamine hit, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And I find that sometimes with my kids, not every day, but there's days where I see it in them too, and that's where I get the guilt because I don't want that in them. Or if I catch themselves like when they want to talk about some show, and it's like some stupid show, and I'm like, like, can we talk about life, like real life, you know? And that's when I start to feel like, oh my gosh, all my kids can talk about is the show that they watched. What's, you know, like
Yeah.
there's that's the two, I think, triggers for me.
So if you like had to go in an anonymous ballot and the question was worded this way, do you think screen time is dangerous for kids? Yes or no?
I think I would lean yes, but my long answer afterward that I would want to do is like, well, it depends on how much and how often,
And I
and there's
think
all these
that's-
nuances.
There's nuances.
That's
Right.
where I'm at, because
Yeah.
I feel like, so like I said, I did a lot of research on it to talk about this
Yeah, I wanna
topic,
hear
because
about
I
it.
have my kids, and like, you know, like I have Malachi, tech savvy. He wants to learn coding, like he's so good at it, and that's what he really
he's
wants
using
to-
his brain.
And he uses his brain, and then he gets in there, he can like, and then he wants to build a computer, like, you know, like he really, and then he watched things on the TV, like documentary about like, you know, like how to, like so good when it comes to that stuff. Like him, and he's probably my biggest one where I'm just like, oh, because my other ones, they can leave it and they go play outside, like they're controlled, right? But for him, it's like what? So I think like, does it damage kids? Yeah, it has a dangerous, but like how we living in a world now where school, them kids was,
It's on
that's why they,
screens.
at one point they said, there's no more books, like it would be on the tablet when they come to school. Certain private school, that's what they use. They don't even use paper book anymore. It's like, okay, your kids go online and do this, like testing. It's all
But
done.
I think screen time should be different. Like your kids just roaming TV, watching shows, or like they're at school learning. Because my kids are on computers.
yeah, but
at
I'm just
school.
saying, like, it's just creating a balance, because this is what I'm saying. There's people, I don't want to shame those that say absolutely no screen time, no TVs, because there are people that don't like that, and
Yeah,
that's
for
okay.
sure.
But I'm just saying, in my home where I felt a little different, because I do have a kid that can type probably faster than anybody that I can think of, Malachi.
Yeah.
Like he's in a thing, and then he creates. I'm pretty sure he's like working on the app thing. Like I don't know how to do that, but like I have to also be like, okay, it's a break time, but then it's like having a balance. You know what I mean? I feel like
Yeah.
there is, like you said, me, I would say yes, but then for him, I'm just like, we have, or you know, we created the virus, the blocks, and all this stuff where my kids like absolutely, you know, but it's like I don't want to take it away from him where it takes away the love.
Yeah.
Of what he's
Well,
doing,
it sounds like
you
he's
know?
not necessarily like the outdoorsy type of kid.
Oh no,
He's
sports.
not indoor
using it
kind
to
of
an
kid.
escape.
Yeah.
Like
He's
and-
not a sporty.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, even with me, like if I had a choice between my kids playing a video game that required problem solving and, you know, like action, like, and they're moving their thumb, they're having to think, I'd rather have that than them sitting passively in front of a show
Oh, yeah, not the
that's just
show.
watching
Right,
like some
right.
plot line. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like at least with the video game, they're doing something. Now, of
Right.
course, we can dig into like what kind
Yeah,
of video,
yeah,
the
yeah,
violence,
That's where I
you
feel like the
know.
nuance starts.
Yeah.
Like, are
Yeah.
we all on the same page that right now we're talking about just watching TV
Passive,
at home, right?
sitting
TV.
around
Oh, yeah, yeah.
watching YouTube videos
Right.
or
Just-
television shows. And I bring
right.
up YouTube because I mean, my kids prefer YouTube over
Everything
over
else.
anything else. Like that's they have their own shows that they watch on
Dude
YouTube, like their own
Perfect, Mark
creators.
Rober, yeah, my
Yeah.
kids love it.
Yeah.
We cut YouTube all together in a house for our kids. So I don't know.
My kids only watch YouTube when I'm around.
Yeah.
They're not allowed free
I-
reign on YouTube.
Every now and then I'll
I've
do
shared
about
here
30
before,
minutes.
but I had a really scary experience
Yeah.
on
I
YouTube.
remember you telling
when
us.
so they
like
have
pornography
kids,
or something?
Yeah, they have kids YouTube, and my nieces and nephews were watching that
Oh, we do
popular
kids
like
YouTube.
Daddy, Daddy, yes, but you know how they like
Johnny.
Yeah, whatever. And I've heard it 1,000 times. I've seen it and whatnot, but it like starts suggesting new movies for you, right? And literally, I happened to walk downstairs right when it was like a cartoon, and it was like singing, and then with a flash of a fingers, it was a pornography scene of two men having sex for about 5 seconds, and then it went back. And if I was not standing there, I would have never known that. And I just heard my kids singing the song, and my nieces and nephews were like, "Oh!" And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like this is, and there's like 10 million views on that video. I'm like, does those parents know what their
Yeah.
kid just saw?
Yeah.
And so for me, same thing. Like YouTube is highly monitored because I just don't trust it as much. Where I feel like things on like PBS
Disney Plus
Kids
or something,
are like
yeah.
that's not gonna happen. I would hope, you know.
And I just
Yeah.
wonder too, maybe like where the education come, how much do we know about safety? Because one thing that I did a nose dive on is I know it's just like, you can be like suggestion videos. Like there's I know you know YouTube. There's so many, like I went and looked, like blockage you can put on those things that I don't think parents are also aware of.
Right,
I feel like there should be like where suggestions, like even on the YouTube Kids, I don't do suggestion. I like block that. So it's only, per their age. And then like there's like so many like other ways too, because you're right. Like you don't, if you're not paying attention to what they're watching,
you're not technically,
you can't see what
for me, I'm not going to sit and watch YouTube with my kids when I'm taking a nap.
Yeah.
Because I'm using it as a babysitter, right?
Exactly.
So you're never going to catch what they see.
Right.
Right.
So I think with one thing that we used to do with YouTube, and I admit we're not doing it as much anymore, but I also know the shows that they watch.
Yeah.
And so, I know what I like about it, and then some things that I'm like, okay, this creator's starting to get a little older. They're starting to talk about more older things. It worked with you for a while. Like they watch Brett Rivera. I'm not sure if any of your kids watch Brett Rivera.
Yes, my kids used to watch it, and then I had to cut it off because this will get older.
He's getting older, and he's talking, and it's still fun, but it's more for older kids.
Yeah.
Is
Like,
he a kid?
He's
a teenager.
He was a teenager when he started, and
but
he
now
would do
he's
these
a
fun
young adult.
shows of like him as a teen and his mom, but now like
He's
he's
a
got a
young
whole
adult.
crew. They all have channels. They all like play off of each other's channels. But now they're dating each other and they're kissing.
Okay,
and
so it's changing.
It's changing, and so now it's like, okay, I think that it's getting a little bit too old for you guys,
mature,
Yeah.
But what you can do is you can create set playlists on YouTube, and then say, hey, you can watch the videos on this playlist, and that way they're not getting suggested videos. That that the very next video that is coming on is on the playlist.
I like that.
And you've already approved those videos.
Oh, that's really good to know. Yeah.
So the thing that I noticed when I went to, or what did it call? So I went to look at studies, right? Because of course there's a lot of study that's been done, and there's a lot of papers that I've been writing by professionals based on research they did on screen time. And the one thing that I do see they have in common is, like you said, yes, it's dangerous, but it's not something that's gonna go away, right? It's not something like you say, cigarette, it's bad, right? But is it gonna go away? It's still here. So the one thing I was seeing as like repeated to study is finding a balance for what works for you and your family, but you definitely need a balance. You can't be the parent that doesn't have any, and if you are, I'm not judging, but I'm just saying you can't be the parent that's like, I don't have anything. Like they just, if they're gonna watch TV all day, then you need to make sure what they're watching is appropriate and that they're not just watching anything they wanna watch. Like you have to create security, you have to put code. Even now with Netflix, I think somebody just posted, who did? I think Jordan Page, right? Like a kid's got in her page. And because as an adult, we watch different things than kids. And then so when they see what was being, mom and dad watched this and suggested, and it was a lot of, based on what they, in the thing they were showing, that's the last thing you want your kids to be curious about. So putting those block and putting those codes in there, parental control, is a great way to fear. And I love the period of time, for 1 to 3, that's TV time. We can put a movie in, we can do something, but then kicking them off to go do something. And it's okay for kids to be bored.
That's
it's
where
okay.
I wanted to go with this. That's what I'm sad about in society, and that I'm seeing a lot of, and is that parents don't allow kids to be bored anymore.
Yeah.
And boredom is crucial. Boredom is big. Boredom is where creativity is born.
comes in.
Right.
Yeah, kids need to be bored. And I tell my kids that all the time. They'll be like, I'm bored. And I'll be like, I'm so happy that you're bored.
That's a good
And
place
I'm not
to
going to
be.
tell you what to do. That is where you are going to go
create.
figure out something to
Right.
do, because being bored is good.
Especially when they say they're bored. 5 seconds after we
They're
were just
finding
doing
something.
something.
And that's what-
It's been 5 seconds. You're already complaining about being
And
bored.
that was
You
my
definitely need to
thing
be
with
bored.
working. I was like, oh my gosh, and then I took the iPad and they were like, oh my gosh, nothing to do. But then their 2 younger ones were outside playing with each other, doing something, and Malachi was in his room going through his book like he was reading. And then they did that for a couple hours where I didn't even hear from them. And then they went in the basement, doing something. And I think most of the studies said, take it. When you take it away, you don't have to give them something to do, because most parents says, because if you are going to take it away all day, though, they said, you do have to come with activities. You can't expect kids for 24 hours or 12 hours to entertain themselves.
Yeah.
But if that short period of time, they said an hour, 2 hours, the most, to be we take it away, just go and find something to do, they will most likely find something to do.
Well,
they'll
my kids
have to
this week have
learn-
been gravitating towards the piano. It's been awesome.
Yeah.
One of them showed interest in the piano, and then the other one's like, oh. So all of their free time when they're bored, Like, I don't have to tell them to go play the piano or go practice their lessons. They're
Yeah.
bored, and so they're like,
I guess I'll
actually,
go
it's
play the
pretty
piano.
fun. Yeah.
I
Same
think
thing,
in a
yeah.
world that everything is so thrown in our face and fast food is not even fast anymore, it has to be delivered to us, and like, so I think, you know what I mean? Like,
That's funny.
we aren't giving our kids opportunity to actually learn how to feel and self-regulate. So in a moment where you're like, go find something to do. Like maybe your kid is like, oh my gosh, I'm tired. Like I'm gonna take a nap, or I'm
Yep.
hungry, or like they don't get these opportunities as much. And I don't think, at least for me, there's ever been a time where my kid is like, I literally am so bored that I'm gonna sit on my bed and stare at the wall for an hour. They're not gonna do
They're
that.
not gonna
They'll
do it.
find something to do.
Just
They
so
might
they're
put up
bored.
a stink. They might be stubborn for 10 minutes.
My kids will whine.
They will find something to do.
You know what's the coolest
Yeah.
thing I've seen my kids do out of boredom? And I was like, oh my gosh, I did the same thing when I was a kid. And so I just loved it. I found them in the living room, and Benjamin had taken all of the crayons out, and he was using the crayons as like people, and he was having them have conversations, and he was having like all sorts, like they were characters, and he like named them based on their colors and everything like that. And I used to do the same thing. Like I just
Yeah.
bored, like, okay, I guess I'm playing with the crayons.
Right.
Like I wasn't even coloring, but
Yeah, and then another. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was
No,
just
go
gonna say,
ahead.
I think as part of that, we need to, as parents and as moms, to handle the uncomfortable, because it is so easy when your kid's whining and being like, please just let us watch a movie. Why won't you let us watch the movie? We'll watch PBS Kids. We'll watch this. We'll turn it on really quiet. We'll,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I have to stick to my guns. There's so many times where it's so easy to be like,
It's
yes,
so
just go watch
easy.
another
Yeah.
episode, or yes, just go do this. But it takes some discipline on my part to say
Absolutely.
no and endure the whining until they go find something to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
I also think when you guys went on my midlife crisis and homeschooled my children for a year, I was like reading a ton about homeschooling and like, because it's like a whole new world and people's
Yeah.
opinions and blah, blah, blah. But I actually really struck me that they have done a lot of research, and it's big in the homeschool community, that like when you allow your children to have free time, they will start naturally gravitating towards the things they're interested in and their strengths, versus like public school, like everyone does math, everyone does this and that. And like, you don't really find till later in life that maybe, you know, your kid will never be good at math, so don't push him in a way like he was an artist. And so I really have found like having that in my mind, like while my kids are doing free time, like notice. And I'm like, oh, my one kid, she
gonna
chose
get
perler
this.
beads and like wanted to build. And my other kid, she's like singing and like role playing, like more artistic, and she's a builder. And this guy's outside building sand, like he's like a maker. Like I've learned more about my kids by just being consciously aware of like, watch them, what they choose to put their efforts in. Whereas like we don't always have that. When they don't have free time, how do you know what your kids are good at? Like let them teach us who they're gonna be when they're older.
Yeah. And the one thing that I also saw, like I went to the mama group and stuff, like I think everything, I always love the point you bring on screen time. And I think
I'm just so passionate about it.
Somebody shut her up.
I know, but then also we look at the shaming thing, and one thing that I really noticed, because I have a friend like she is like you know how you passionate about
screen
it, but her
police.
passionate but her thing is like a policeman, like
Right.
all the time. Like she see people and she's like, how can they? And I'm just like, we don't know. And I was
out.
reading
Yeah.
a story and I saw this, and this lady's like, I'm big in screen time, but like right now, like my husband and I are trying to connect. We can't find a babysitter. Like she's telling her story. She's like, it's not an excuse, but she's like, I was at a restaurant. She's like, we couldn't find a sitter that night. We don't live close to family. Couldn't find nobody. And I think that's a topic we need to have, babysitting conversation. That's a big topic. And then she's like, but we wanted to just connect. Like it was only free time. So we went to dinner. Usually we can't go
I
to
know
dinner
where this
because
is
the
going.
kids are always like, you know, she's
Yep.
like, we have
You
two
can't have a
kids,
nice
but it's
time,
always
yeah.
can't have a dinner because we don't want to go out. We didn't want to stay home and make dinner. So we went and
gave 'em
the
a tablet.
kids, and they sit there and they were watching our phone. But it's the first time they were able to like concentrate on each other and had a conversation. And somebody walked to them and was like, shame on you for having your kids on the tablet. Like, how could you? And I feel like we have to be, I think we talk about this all the time. Like, we can't judge people because we don't know what their situation is, right? We don't know. And then she's like, it was like, it ruined the night.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was like,
Then you feel shame the rest of the night.
yeah,
and,
because okay, then we need to take it because everybody's judging us because and then you two at the fault. So I feel like also when I was thinking, I was like, we have to also may not understand people's situation. We can educate as much as we can, right? Then people are gonna choose to do what they want to do when it comes to screen time, and we just have to just keep educating using the platform that we have and hoping we can help someone to find a balance when it comes to it.
And I think like that goes to like an overwhelming like just rule of thumb. Like worry about yourself. Like, you
Yeah.
guys know in conversations outside of this, I am so, like, I have an opinion on screen time, right?
Yeah.
But, like, I've never gone up to someone at Olive Garden whose kid's on that and, like, projected that. Like, in my house, I'm choosing to use my passion to fuel my opinion in my home.
Yeah.
And I've done the research in my home on how my kids change and act when we do and don't have it. So I keep that to myself. Of course, on the Brave Talk Show, I'll express, but, like,
Can I bring up a moral dilemma?
yeah.
So we talked at the beginning of this episode, the hot topic was abuse in the public place, right? Vanessa
Oh, yeah,
shared that
yeah.
story. Is it abuse if you know somebody and mom just puts her kids in front of the screen 24/7? You know they watch TV all day.
It's not abuse.
She doesn't. There's nothing else. There's like
It would
literally they just watch TV all day. Do you say something, or do you just, or now do you say, because it's not verbal abuse,
So
instead
as
it's
a-
in front of a screen?
Like, it might feel like more neglect
It's
than, like,
neglect. It's
abuse.
more of a neglect than abuse. Because
Do you
abuse
say,
is
do you
like,
say something then?
I think if you're comfortable with that person, so I think the thing is, it's like, if you're comfortable, like if I don't know somebody, like me in my case because of work, yes. But like if I don't know someone, like, you know, but I think a lot of people is lack of education, like, right? So if it's my friend, I'm like, hey, like we're going to the pool or da-da-da-da, I would start
Yeah.
inviting that child, like if I'm
That's what I
doing
was gonna
something, because
say.
like I would hate the idea that like this child is just at home on a screen all day. But then if it's not gonna, even invite the mom to come with me, like, hey, we're going to the park today. Oh, you don't want to go, but I'll take your son. You know, start making the effort, because then it's like, oh, you know, and then at one point having a conversation to be like, you know what, our house, our kids love screen time. But what we do, kind of like in conversation, because I think a lot of people don't want to feel judged.
Yeah.
So I think you have to go about it differently
Yeah,
than
I
most,
like
because the minute you call them out, they will remove themselves from you. They're like, I don't want to be
There
dealing
goes
with
the
you, because you
relationship.
exactly.
That's
so
exactly
it's more
what I was going to
conversation.
say. Is I would first, like, if my daughter came to me and said, my friend, she says she's all summer she watched TV and blah, blah, I would start inviting that friend over to my house, like assessing like if I felt like it was actual like neglect and
Yeah.
unsafe, or just like, you know, and then kind of like taking it upon myself to get that kid to be more active and hoping that that mother would see the effects of their child,
Yeah.
and then also asking her. And then if I ever felt like it felt morally more like I was worried for the kid's safety, I would obviously say something.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's, for me, less I would be in their face than like someone being hit or like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that.
Totally.
Yeah, I love that, Dylan. That was
Yeah.
a good one. Well,
was a
thank
really
you.
great
That was a
topic,
great
Vanessa.
topic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we can always talk
We could
about
always
screen
talk
time.
about it.
So,
Yeah.
And that, I mean, there's so many subtopics, like, okay, is screen time like phones, Instagram, when you
games.
get
and that's what I was
phones.
thinking. There's
Yeah.
so many things you can
Video
add to it.
games.
Safety,
Yeah.
internet
Let's do a whole
safety.
episode on
We'll do a
video
whole
games.
one.
Oh, video
Yeah, video
games.
games,
There's
yeah.
just so many levels to it. So
Yeah.
it's just, you have to. My kids are not big video game people, so I don't worry much, except for Roblox.
My kids beg for it, and I say no.
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 Yeah.
Yes,
Well, I
so-
love it. And I think moral of the story is find.
Don't let your kids watch TV.
Yeah. We all
we're gonna
think you're a
judge
very
you.
bad parent if you watch TV. No, I think for me, overall, what I learned from this is do the research in your own family, try both, and see how it affects before you push your opinion on someone else. And then
Yes.
stand true in your opinion and know that this is you, don't push it on anyone else, and be okay with how you're parenting around screen.
Yeah, because that's what I noticed when we started speaking. We all were like, well, you know, because we worry of the judgment. So just be confident.
Well, and
what's
I
best
know,
for
like
you.
personally, I can do better.
Yeah.
I can
Oh yeah,
too.
me too. We
do
all
better.
can do better
Yeah.
every time.
I think
But
that's where my hesitation.
Amen.
yeah. All right, that's a wrap for this episode of the Brave Talk Show. If you're watching us on YouTube, there are more episodes you would love on that window to the right, and we will see you on the other side.
Bye.
Bye.
I have some questions for